Hi my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I haven't had the chance to do one last week because I was just so busy with family stuff. So my apologies if you missed me last week. I'm back this week with a lovely snow scene. Lovely simple snow scene. If you're a beginner or an amateur, this is for you, okay? If you're struggling with snow scenes and keeping them simple but creating a huge impact, this is for you. All right, I'm going to do a lovely snow scene. It's simple, but it's very, very eye-catching, and it's just based upon darks against lights. Okay, that's all it is. Darks against lights, lights against darks. So I'm going to keep it simple. This is going to be nice and dramatic, I think, with a frame. I have a wide canvas behind me, the same as the last tutorial. 20 by 8, 20 inches wide by 8 high. I know a few of you can't get these canvases, but what you could do is, if you get a 20 by 16 canvas board and just take a Stanley blade, a Stanley knife, and cut that down the middle, okay? That'll be absolutely fine, and you'll get two of these. I do that from time to time. It's absolutely fine. You know, it's not going to get damaged in any way. Once it's framed and hung, it'll be brilliant. It'll be fine. So you could do it, okay? If you're really stuck, if you can't get this size. So do try it, see how you get on. A little river with some snow on either side and nice kind of silhouette of trees coming up. So nice and simple, but very effective, I think. This is going to be fun. Don't go anywhere. Okay, here we go. Now, if you can see the reference photograph there, okay, it's upright, okay? It's portrait, and you're probably wondering, how are we going to do this? So this is just basically show you how you could take an upright photograph like this and make it into a nice wide landscape. Okay, does that make sense? You know, I just thought this would be nice to try. So the basic scene is really just the river with the tree. So I'm focused on the river here with the tree in the middle, okay? And everything on the sides is just the snow and the land coming out. Do you see what I mean? So it's a nice experiment to try yourself at home, because an upright photograph like this can look stunning in a wide format as well. Okay, so let's just try it and see how it goes. But there's the scene. I thought that was very nice, very, very eye-catching scene. So I'm going to try and paint this. All right. Now I'm just going to fix my brush because I left my brush with paint on it. Okay, and it's very kind of hard. You see that? What I'm going to do is just dip it in turpentine with linseed oil and give it a good rub on some tissue, and that will loosen up the hairs and take away the little bit of hard paint on the tip of the brush. Just give it a good rub. Okay, not too much, you don't have to overdo this, and it's fine again, that'll do. So, let me tell you my colours. I have titanium white, Naples yellow, a little cadmium yellow, some alizarin crimson, some burnt umber, lamp black, a little cobalt blue, and a tiny amount of phaylo blue. I might not even need the two of them, but I think it's nice to have a variety on the canvas, or on the palette rather, so we can always add to this as we're going. So just a handful of colours really. Now I've drawn a quick sketch here, just a very loose reference line where the sky meets the land, and a very loose reference line of the water coming down here, little river, and the trees. Always keep the trees kind of off centre. So you can see now they're on the centre of the reference photograph. So what I would tend to do with something like this is, if you can, try to keep everything kind of off center just slightly to either side, okay? Because if something is dead center, it just does not look right. It just doesn't look balanced for some reason. So always keep a subject slightly off center on your canvas, okay? It's just a good tip, and it does work, believe me. Right, let's get mixing. Enough of me yapping on. Let's mix and have a bit of fun with this. The sky has a lovely glow over here, doesn't it? So I'm going to dampen my brush. I have linseed oil with turpentine here, or rather turpentine with a tiny drop of linseed oil in it, and some blue paper towel. All right, that's all I have. I'm using my phone again today. I think that's good. I can see there's lots of lovely colour. It's nice and crisp. Let's hope it goes well. Let's get this glow in over here. I'm going to start with a little Naples yellow. And if you know me by now, you know that I like to start with very thin mixes. And what I mean by thin mixes is, I don't mean like very watery mix. That's not what I mean. What I mean is a tiny amount of paint only, okay? There's a tiny amount of turpentine in this, just a tiniest little amount. We've only a small canvas, okay? And we're only putting this on a small section here, sort of slightly off to the left. So only a little amount of paint is needed. Don't go putting big, huge scoops of paint onto your palette, because you will realistically probably only use one brush load of this colour. So there's no point in using tons and tons and tons of paint just for a tiny little area, okay? Let's take into that a tiny amount of crimson. Again, just with the corner, look. Just pull it out with the corner of your brush, just like that. And already we have a beautiful kind of a pink sort of a glow. Now, I forgot to do one thing on this, okay? I forgot to prime my canvas. This is just a very raw, dry canvas. You can hear that? It's really, really dry. So what I'm going to do is, sometimes, if I forget to prime a canvas, I'll take a little of my thinners, alright? I have thinners mixed here. It's turpentine with linseed oil. And that's why it's yellow. The linseed oil makes that yellow colour, okay? I just spilt it on my canvas. That's fine. I'm going to take some of this and just rub it across my sky. And hopefully, what that should do is take away the soakage of the canvas. So it's just to help the paint flow around that little bit better, because some of these cheaper canvases are just not primed well at all, okay? They're really not primed at all. They just get a very, very quick coat of primer. Now that's fine. That will do. So let's go back into our paint now. Don't worry about all of this. This will dry in, okay? So let's go. Let's take some Naples yellow, a little white, tiny amount of crimson. And I'm going to start with this lovely kind of a salmon peachy colour over here. Now, it hasn't made a huge difference, but there's a little bit of more of a move on the canvas, okay? It moves around that little bit better. Let's put a little Naples yellow and white into this. The problem, you see, with not priming the canvas well is that you'll find it very difficult to blend colours together. So when I want to blend colours together later on this, it's going to be really difficult because the canvas is just completely dry and it's soaking up all of this lovely paint. It's going right, it's soaking it right in, look. Now, let's just go across here. I'm going to bring this lovely pinky, peachy sort of a colour right across. I'm not going all the way up, okay, because if you can see the sky, it kind of goes from this warm yellow up into a blue and over to a kind of a grey. So I want to capture that lovely wintry kind of a morning. Now I'm going to start putting in a nice kind of a blue up here. So before I go into blue, I'm going to mix a very light pink, little crimson and a little white, okay? Tiny amount. And I'm going to go across the top with that. And I'm going to soften that down into this lovely yellow, okay? Well, it's not a yellow, it's like a peachy, salmony kind of a colour. Now that means I can put on my blue without any green colours on the canvas. Now, someone did mention to me that, you know, sometimes in a sunset there is greens, and yes, sometimes there is lovely greens in a sunset sky. But, you know, I don't want greens on my sky. If you want greens, then yes. And some kind of snow scene, sunrises, sunsets will have a kind of little bit of green going across the sky. It depends on your scene, but I don't want any green in this. I'm taking some cobalt blue, because cobalt blue is a lovely, subtle, forgiving colour. It will forgive you, okay? It's very, very forgiving. You can do a lot with cobalt blue and it won't destroy your painting. Now, a nice blue up across there and go right across. So you can see how I'm dragging this across my canvas. I'm making this, it's a very, very thin mix, you see. So I'm dragging it across. I'm not putting too much paint on. So it's a very thin mix. There's only a little amount of paint on my brush now. You see? And I'm just dragging that little amount across. And I'm going to come down then into that lovely sort of pinky colour just here and there. Look. Up and down, up and down. Let's add a little bit of white into it for over here. Go around in little circles. And I'm just going to give that a quick clean. Take some white on its own. And just soften that down into that kind of pinky yellow colour over here. So now it goes from this lovely pinky yellow colour up to a nice light blue, doesn't it? I just want to soften those colours together ever so gently. Isn't that lovely so far? That's coming on really nice, I have to say. Now I'm going to dampen my brush again, just very slightly, take a tiny amount of turpentine, and I'm going to start making a nice kind of a grey blue for this side, okay? So I'm going to take some cobalt blue, a little white, and I'll take a hint of crimson. Then I'm going to take the tiniest amount of black. Just the tiniest little amount, okay? This will give you a lovely warm kind of soft grey. Those three colours. Still not enough. Take a bit more black and then take a little more white. There we are, look at that. Isn't that lovely? Go up there now, fill that in. Softening it across to your blue. Now bring it down. And I'm really using very thin mixes, okay? There's hardly anything on my brush. Look, my brush is almost clean, really. I'm just putting the tiniest little amount of paint on. Now, when it comes across to this yellow, you have to be careful with your grey and yellow here because, again, they will go kind of a green colour. So just start adding a little bit more pink into that colour, okay? So now we're going to start mixing pink and black. But a little more on the pink side, okay? So I'm going to start softening that into the yellow. Then I'm going to go back into this kind of a lovely soft grey that we have. And look, I'm just swirling it around, mixing it in. And now we have a lovely transition, don't we? Without any muddy colours on the canvas at all. And I think the trick with this is thin paint, okay? Very thin amount of paint on your brush. And just drag it around on your canvas. That gives you a lot more control. Now look at that already. Isn't that just a wonderful sky? It really, really is. Now I'm going to switch brushes. I'll go to a medium, kind of a flat brush, okay? Nice medium flat. I'll dampen it and just give it a rub on some tissue because I think I have a little bit of green deep inside this brush that I want to take off. So I'm just giving it a really good rub. Look, you see? Green on the brush. That's what you don't want. So dip it in to your turpentine and give it a really good going around. I might even try using a different brush because I don't want to spoil this lovely sky. I really don't. There's a lot of green inside this brush. Even though it looks clean, it's deep down right in by the ferrule of the brush. Isn't that a really good clean? That actually looks like two people, doesn't it? I was just thinking that. Three actually. It's like 3 carrots. Huh. That's an idea. We could put a carrot into our picture. A person. Do you know what I'll do? I'll switch brushes, look, because there's a lot of green in that brush. Now, I have a lovely little clean flat brush here. I am going to start adding a little bit of a glow over here. So I'm just going to take some Naples yellow, tiny amount of cadmium yellow, and the tiniest amount of crimson. And I just want to add lovely little glow over here Let's take a bit more crimson and take a little bit more cadmium yellow. Now I don't want too much cadmium yellow in this, so I make it nice and sort of almost on the pink side, and then a little Naples yellow in there. And I'm going to just very gently sort of bring that across my sky. I don't want to have just one lump of this colour in one place. I want this colour to kind of soften outwards across the sky. So I'll take a little bit of Naples yellow, look, and pull that across. So you can see now how this dry canvas, it's really, really dry. And it's not allowing me to mix too much. Go for some Naples yellow and white. Soften that ever so slightly. Okay. So you can see that, okay. I'm going to put a little pink around that because I don't want that too kind of contrasting with the sky. So I'm going to soften some pink into this and then soften it upwards ever so slightly. You could just leave it as it was before now, okay? You could absolutely leave it. I just want a nice glow over in this corner. Now, I'm going to start doing some nice clouds. So give this a nice clean. Let's just dip it into some turpentine. Soak it onto your tissue there, like that. Let's get some nice whitey clouds. Okay? Just go right into some white. And this will mix with the colours on the canvas, so don't worry, it's not going to be just a pure white, okay? Let's go up and start putting some clouds in, look. I'm just going around in little circles. And I'm allowing the brush to sort of dance around. Now I'm then going to soften into the grey, you see. I'm going to just ever so gently just kind of go around little swirls and soften it lighter and lighter. Take pressure off the brush and let that soften back into the grey, okay? You see? Let me try it again. We'll go down here. Let's put a nice bright one just here, okay? And then soften it across into the yellow and soften it back into the grey. So I'm leaning down here to get that initial curve. And then I'm softening it and picking up the brush and lifting off. Isn't that wonderful? Aren't they just lovely clouds already? Nice bright clouds. Now as you come over to the light area of the sky, you could add a little Naples yellow into that white, okay? So you're making them a little bit more kind of a bright white. And you could even go around some of the edges of some of those clouds. Soften that in like that, just very sort of randomly. Clouds are very kind of random in skies. You know, they're never exact, as they say. They just kind of go where they want, when they want. You can't make a cloud stay anywhere in the sky, so it's very random, you see. Just allow the brush to sort of dance around, put a couple of little flicks in here and there, one or two coming down like that over here. You can soften it in with your finger as well. You see? Just a little. Like so. Again, Naples yellow, some white. And let's go around to the front of these, look, and just along the edges, just tap some of that in there. And then you can, with your finger, you can soften it in as well, look. See, isn't that lovely? Now, let's come down a little bit here with that. And we can put another one or two in back here. And how about that? Now I'm going to darken that grey ever so slightly. So with this brush, the same brush, let's make a slightly darker mix of that colour. So it was pink, it was black, a little cobalt blue, and some alizarin crimson. Okay? Then take some white until you get the shade you think is just right. I don't think that's too bad at all. I'll go with that. So I'm going to just darken this ever so slightly down here. And I'm going to maybe add a little bit more cobalt blue into this, just to give it a bit more distance and more depth. And it's very dry brushwork, you see. And we can even suggest, this is almost like suggesting trees in the distance as well, at the same time. Okay? So we can go across, look, and suggest like a line of trees going off in the distance. Very, very loose, very rough. Scrubbing the brush in, look. There we go, look at that. Now go up here and scrub that into your sky. Let this disappear off. You can even use your fingertip just to soften it across. I know you're not supposed to mix oils on your fingertips, but look, it's only a tiny amount, it'll be fine. And I clean them well afterwards, don't worry. Well, there we go, look at that. Give my fingers a wipe there now. How's that looking? That's quite a nice guy now, isn't it? Very kind of dramatic on one side, soft on the other side. So I'll give my brush a quick clean. And I'm going to just start dabbing in, with this brush even, that dark line of trees across the back, okay? I'm going to take some burnt umber. I'm going to take a hint of black and then a hint of crimson. So I'm going for a blacky, rich, pinky, brown kind of a tone, okay? There's a lot of black in this now, to be fair. But that hint of crimson just warms it slightly. Okay, let's just tap that in. Look, I'm just scraping it across. This is really very far away now, so you don't have to be, you're not painting every little bush individually and little leaves. It's just a line of kind of a row of hedges, I suppose, off in the distance there, okay? Just to suggest it, that's all. Look, very, very simple, very loose. Like so. We have a nice tree off in the distance back there, don't we? We could put that in quite simply. Let's just put a couple of little flicks in like this. See, I'm kind of pulling towards the center as I go up. Just create a little bit of roughage around it. Let's take a little black. Pop a little bit of black in here and there. Particularly towards the bottom of this kind of ditch off in the distance. Look, it's a little dab here and there. I'm just creating a very rough kind of form of the tree there, okay? And I'm going to take a very pointy brush and some black, just basic black, and suggest one or two little branches or whatever you'd like to call it. Branches, twigs, just a suggestion of one or two of them showing. Put one or two here as well, just sort of loose ones. Take a little bit more. Okay? Just a little suggestion, that's all. It's just to kind of bring your eye in that direction, just to show you there's something going on. You don't have to be absolutely perfect with this now, okay? So I'm going to move to the other side. Now let me just sit back for a moment and take a look at this. Yeah, you see, that's not bad now, is it? That is quite nice. And again, I'm only getting the impression of the scene. I don't want to copy this photograph exactly as it is. I'm just using the colours. let's go and do a nice little bush on this side over here. What I'm going to do for this is, now let me just have a look at what is over there. Okay, I'm going to go with this brush again, and I'm going to take, because it's in the sun, it's going to be quite warm, isn't it? I'm going to take some crimson with some of that burnt umber there, okay? But lots and lots of crimson in this. And you know what? I'm going to take a tiny amount of burnt sienna, because I would say there's a little amount of burnt sienna over on that side. A tiny amount of burnt sienna as well, look. Now let's try that. I've lots of thick paint on my brush, okay? Very little turpentine. And I'm just going to suggest that bush first. It's a big kind of a bush there, isn't there? It's very bushy kind of an area. Let's take a bit more sienna with umber. Going across into this one here. A little bit more sienna. Then I'm going to sort of suggest a very rough kind of a top on it there, okay? You see all those little pieces coming out of it like that. Then we'll go into some burnt umber. And you can see how I'm just kind of flicking it up into the light. You see that? So the light is kind of catching. Now, that's just kind of the basic shape. I'm going to take my pointy brush and take some sienna on that. And I'm going to give it some of this, look. So it's, imagine as if the light is kind of showing through all these colours. Isn't that lovely? A little bit of crimson. And it's only showing just where the kind of the light is catching on the outside of the bush. Does that make sense? I'll put one or two just around here as well. Now I'm also going to suggest one or two little bits of a tree here on this one, okay? Because this will be kind of behind this main one that's in silhouette. It's going to be kind of poking out behind it. So I just want to get it in now, just to make life easier for myself. And then what I'm going to do is take some burnt umber, go down here then to my dark mix and start darkening all this up. So I'm going to take some burnt umber, a little black. So now we go into nice dark colours, you see, where it's coming down sort of into the silhouette. So now let's switch brushes, go back into that nice dark colour, black and burnt umber. And let's just make that nice and dark here, okay? Right down at the bottom, nice and dark, look. I'll kind of soften it up here and there. So now we have a dark with that kind of nice bright glow just going around the edge. Isn't that lovely? It almost gives that kind of halo effect. Now, if you did want to go a step further and add real kind of bright light around that, you could just take some naples yellow, some cadmium yellow, and a little burnt sienna, and you could put a little bit of that just around on some of them, okay? See? And that will really give you that effect. Isn't that wonderful? So there we go. I will leave it at that for now. I want to next put in some of my snow. So I'm going to take another clean brush. I am going to get, let me see, I have a lovely brush here that was gifted to me by someone, Rosemary and Co. Okay? Now, I'm not promoting the brushes or anything like that. I'm just letting you know what they are. A very good friend of mine, a follower, sent me these brushes as a gift, okay? Rosemary and Co. There's some fantastic brushes. Very soft. Some of them are kind of semi-synthetic. They're absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to try this. Lovely short flat. Let's try this and see what it's like. I'm going to put in the snow first, here, and then we can focus on these lovely trees, okay? So now the snow, it's a cool colour with a hint of green going through it. So I'm basically going to just make a nice snowy colour first, a shadowy snow colour. So let's go in here to this mix. Let's take some white. Okay. A little amount of thinners just on the corner of my brush to soften it slightly. I'm going to take some cobalt blue, a little crimson, and crimson is very overpowering. So just be careful. Some cobalt blue, some crimson, and a little black. Now, focusing probably more on the cobalt side of the colour, okay? Some more cobalt in this. Now, let me have a look at this. It's kind of a grey, snowy colour. I'll go across first under this over here. And you see the way I'm picking up the colour. And I'm dragging that kind of colour down. That's what you want, okay? That's perfect. You want that to happen. You don't want a completely different clean colour. So I'm kind of purposely going up into the browns there, look, and some of the blacks, and making it a little wiggly line and pulling it down. And that's mixing with the colours I have. So you're creating nice soft colours, and you see the way it's sort of merging together then off in the distance. You see? Isn't that lovely? That's what you want. So don't be afraid to allow colours to sort of mix together ever so slightly. Now let's come down here, and I'm just going to very loosely put in the bank of that river there, okay? Let me mix up a little bit more. I'll take some more cobalt blue, a little amount of crimson, a nice bit of white. Again, when I add the white, it gets very thick, so I'm taking a tiny amount of turpentine then, just to soften the white, almost. Does that make sense? Now let's go across here. And you see, I'm even picking up some of the pinky browns as well. And I'm pulling them down and allow them to kind of soften in. And that will really help with the composition. That really kind of brings the painting together. It ties everything together. So don't be afraid to let colours to kind of merge every now and again like that, okay? Go up there now. Let's just create a nice sort of a bank. It goes up there. Almost kind of disappears. Lovely colours down in the snow. Look at that. And I'm swooping them down. So you're inviting the viewer down into the centre of the photograph, you see? Or the painting, rather. You're inviting the viewer down. Okay? Now, let me just give my brush a very quick clean. And what I'm going to do actually is, I'm taking a flat brush. A very, very small flat brush. Let me see. I go for my small stubby. I'm going to take some. I'm just going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to pop a little bit of white in just here and there. Just to create some texture on the surface of the snow. You see, it's just sort of to break up that dark. You don't want it just completely dark. So a nice little bit of texture. And then I'm going to mix a tiny amount of green, okay? I'm going to go for black and cad yellow. And then I'm going to put a little blue into that because it's a very cool green. There's tiny amounts of green in this. There's little blades of grass poking through here and there, okay? Tiny, tiny blades of green grass just poking through. So I'm just popping one or two in here and there. You could even soften them in slightly as well. Now let's go and do our trees. This very big tree here. There's a lovely impact on this tree. We need to do the tree. Actually, before I start the tree, I just want to put in that water, okay? The water, let me see, it's kind of a brown. It starts off kind of a light colour, but then into a brown. So I'm just going to start off light first. I'm going to put in a nice light colour. Just like a bit of white, a little bit of Naples yellow. Put in a bit of white up there. And always paint a river left to right, okay? Or right to left. Never up and down like this. Always paint your river left to right. Okay, that's just a little tip. I'm then going to take some of the muddy colour. I'll take a little hint of crimson in that, actually. That would be nice. So it then goes into a kind of a dark colour, doesn't it? Let's just soften this across. Okay, does that make sense? So we're getting there very slowly. Now the next thing I want to do is, before I can continue on, I want to do my trees. Okay, I really have to get these trees in because the impact on these is going to be just stunning, absolutely stunning. Before I do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of detail just behind the trees and on the sides of the trees there. Just a little bit. Little tiny bit of shadow there. Now, okay, that's fine. And even a little bit of something in the snow here and there, okay? Just to suggest, could be little bits of wood, you know, little blades of grass, that kind of thing. Just a little bit, just to break it up slightly, okay? That's all. Okay. Now on to our lovely trees. We need lots of turpentine for this. Let me just make sure now my camera is still recording and everything looks okay. Yes, I'm happy enough with that. And trees. Trees really are quite simple. It's just a case of starting with a nice thick trunk and working your way up and getting thinner and thinner. I'm adding lots of turpentine into this, little black, a little brown. Let's start. I'm going to start with one. It's slightly off center, okay? So it's going to go laying down hard and go right up like that, look. Nice and hard, and then lift off like that. Okay? Now make that trunk nice and thick at the bottom. Then we have another one that goes almost vertical, but I'm just going to kind of go on my own. And if you feel that the colours are kind of mixing to the colours underneath, you can just let your painting dry and come back to it a couple of hours later or even the next day or something like that. So by all means, you can leave it dry if the paint is not covering properly, okay? And I'm just flicking outwards some little branches, just nice and carefully. A few blades of grass kind of at the base of the tree trunks like that. Okay. And let's just create some nice direction with some of these branches. Okay, let's get one coming down like that. That's a nice one, isn't it? And let's get another one kind of going up like that. And don't worry trying to get these absolutely perfect, because we're going to have some foliage on this, okay? Just a little amount of foliage. Just wiggle around like you're painting a lot of little snakes. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do, okay? You're painting lots of little snakes, and one flicks off of the other, you see? Now you can do as much or as little of this as you like, completely up to yourself. But in general, what I try to do is create the shape of the tree and the foliage like this. Now, obviously, you can't paint every single leaf, okay? If I was to paint every single leaf, I'd have to go along like this, okay, painting every single leaf, and it would take me absolute hours and hours and hours and hours, okay? I can't record something like that. I don't have the patience to record something like that. It just takes too much time, okay? As nice as it is. Let me go over and start putting some branches on this one over here. And it's just the very same with this one, okay? Let's give it a nice dark tree trunk all the way up there, right out of the painting, look. And let's just suggest a couple of nice tree trunk branches coming off of it like that. And just keep it simple. Don't go crazy if you feel you don't want to go crazy. If you want to keep it simple, just keep it simple. Just put in a handful of little branches like that, and then put your foliage over it, over the top. Okay, you can just do it like that. I'll move across to the next one, and the next one gets warmer, okay? So more burnt umber and a little crimson in this mix. We have one thick one kind of coming up here. Now you can use a larger brush than this if you like for your tree trunk, okay? This is a size 0. It's really, really small. You can get a smaller one or you can get a slightly larger one. It's up to yourself. And I'll put in another one, kind of falling just over to one side and curving upwards. Okay. That's coming on quite nice now, isn't it? So, burnt umber, little crimson. I'm going to use this nice warm colour for the branches on this tree, okay? Because this is right over by the sun. So we want a nice warm, rich kind of a colour. So you can see how that kind of melts into that colour now. Isn't that lovely? It's absolutely stunning, these colours. I just love warm colours like this. And keep those warm colours coming out. Look, lovely warm colours. So we've dark colours over here, warm colours over here. And you can keep going with this. You can take your time at home and just keep going with this when you have plenty of time on your hands. Just tip away. Tip away with this. Nice and chilled out. Have a cup of coffee next to you. My tea has gone cold, actually. My tea went cold. But what harm? I can make another. I just thought this photograph really jumped out at me. It's just one of these really eye-catching kind of scenes where it's just very simply done, but it had such an impact. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those scenes. Really, really stunning. Now I'm going to go up here. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to take some black now and I'm going to go right down into the base of these and put them nice dark black down in here, okay? Create a nice silhouette. And kind of sit them down almost in a bush, you see? There we go. Okay, how's that? Now you could add, if you wanted to add a tiniest amount of foliage to this, you could try it. I have a very rough splayed out brush here, okay? It's a medium stubby, but it's very rough. I'm going to try a little bit of it with a very dry brush. Let's just try. Little tiny bit. And just create the curve of some of those trees. See? I'm creating the direction of the foliage. Then I go out here just a little bit, tiny bit. Just the tiniest little bit. Okay, I don't want to overdo this. And I leave it at that. Now again, I'm going to stand back and take a quick look and see how this looks on. That's nice. That's quite a nice little bunch of trees there, isn't it? Quite nice. So I'm topping up my turpentine and I'm going to carry on now and let's drive on and do this lovely snow. Okay, let's get some nice colour in here. White, some turpentine, a little cobalt blue, a little crimson, tiny amount of black. And it's quite wet, okay? It's quite a wet colour. And you can hear the dryness of my canvas, okay? You can hear that? Quite dry. It's very dry and rough. I will definitely be sanding and priming my canvas in future. Now this is nice for certain techniques if you want, for instance, the paint underneath to dry very fast and you can put thicker layers over it like this. It's great for that. But it's not so good if you want to blend colours together. It gives you a very rough kind of effect. So let's go to the other side. Let's take some white, some cobalt blue. I love these brushes. They're fantastic brushes. Rosemary and Co. They're lovely, lovely soft brushes. Some cobalt blue, alizarin crimson, tiny amount of black. I think a bit more cobalt blue in that. When people think about snow scenes, they think white. They think everything is white in snow scenes. Most of the time it will be a light blue, but sometimes it's kind of a dark shadowy colour. Like this kind of a mauvey colour here. You know, sometimes it's like that. So don't assume if you're thinking about painting a snow scene that it's just going to be lots of white paint. A light blue is normally better, okay? A light blue. I would always go with something slightly darker like this first, and then work your way up to a brighter colour. I find it much easier to control snow scenes. So for instance, you can see now I have a kind of a dark colour on this. Then you take some white with little amount of cobalt blue, and you start putting lots of that thick paint. Then you see you could start creating layers. You see? Little mounds of snow with that colour. Does that make sense? And you can pull them through, then soften them down, you see? So that really gives you some lovely texture. And another thing to remember, especially when you're going down by the river's edge down here, separate the little sections of water coming up, or the bank, you see? So I'm going to separate one from the other here with just a little bit of light colour. Alright, like so. So let's go over here and I'll show you. So bring it up, follow the bank upwards. That will give you the direction of your snow falling downwards towards the river, you see? Just kind of flick it up. And we'll do a little bit of that over here. You see, it's just giving a bit of texture, making that snow feel like it's nice puffy snow that you can walk through. The next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to give the bank a nice dark line. So with my very small pointy brush, I'm just going to go along the edge of the river up here, and just here and there, where it might show. You see? That just separates the water from the river bank. And then what you can do is, you can kind of drag slightly here and there, just drag that back up the bank, okay? You see? So it's not just a solid line you're painting. You're not just painting a little wiggly line all the way across. You're pulling some of that up into the snow overhead, okay? Like this, for example, look. Just leave it flick up and leave it just disappear. And you can go even darker. You can take a tiny amount of black, pure black, and just give it a tiny hint of black here and there as well, look. Now, does that make a little bit of sense? Does that make it easier to understand? So it's separating the two colours again. Let's move down and do some reflections, okay? I'm going to use this brush again, just give it a quick clean, get some of that colour off. I'm going to make a nice, you can see it's a nice dark browny black, isn't it? So let's get some burnt umber, little black, and I can see a little hint of crimson as well in this. I'm going to start with this colour, okay? I'm going to fill it in with this colour first, alright? Again, remember, left to right. Don't forget that, left to right. Now, let's take a little black, okay, and a little burnt umber, and I'm then going to create, let's say, a reflection from that, okay, and I'm going to just pull down here and there one or two darks, okay, particularly by the darks over here by the river bank. So there's going to be darks in there in a moment. Let's just pull some of those down. It's just to give that effect of a little bit of a reflection, okay? Now I'm going to take a little burnt umber and I'm just going to strengthen that one just ever so much, okay? Just a little bit. And I'm going to suggest one of the branches off of the tree coming across like that. Then I'm going to take some black and suggest one or two little rocks, okay? Little pebbles in this. And I'll go along here, across this bank here, so you can see where it meets the water. And I put a little bit here. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to sort of flick this up. Look. Again, it's not a solid line, you see? Let's just kind of drag it up with the brush. Make it very sort of rough and ruffled. Okay, does that make sense? Let's take some burnt umber and I'm just going to pop a couple of little suggestions of little reeds and all that kind of stuff, little bits and bobs. Bits and bobs, I like to call it. Bits and pieces. Because, you know, down by a riverbank like this, you're going to get bits of everything, aren't you? Bits of sticks, bits of logs, a couple of these tiny grasses sort of flicking up. You get a bit of everything down here. Put a little bit up there. And you can just kind of work away on this to your heart's content. Just putting in little things just to suggest that there's lots going on, okay? That's the important thing. You're telling the viewer that there's just lots going on in the scene. So now, for example, let's go back to our green and let's pop a little bit of green in here and there, just to suggest little blades of grass popping through that snow. Do one or two over here. You see? Then you could take some nice crisp white and a little hint of cobalt blue. Okay? Let's come down here by this riverbank and let's just pop some of that in some of the sections to create these little separate mounds, you see? So it's kind of one in front of the other type of a thing. Let me show you. So I cut in front of that one there, a little bit of that, and the same as here, same there. And it just helps give the effect of these different little lumps of snow. That's all it does. It just gives you that effect. And I come up here, pop a few around just here and there. Again, following the direction of the land coming down, that will kind of bring your eye down into the water, okay? Just remember that. You know, if I go across like this, it's just going to look very flat. There's going to be no direction in the snow. So bringing it down towards the water's edge, it does catch your eye and pull your eye down into the center of the painting. So do try it. It's, just experiment with different things. I'm going to pop a little tiny bit of snow on some of these stones here, okay? Perhaps suggest one or two little ripples. And my friends, that is it. I'll pop a little bird in up here. Will I go on the left or the right with the bird? I suppose I'll go on the right. Let's keep our lovely sky over there. And if you wanted, I know I'm going a bit far now with this, but I'm going to take some burnt sienna and some crimson, and I'm going to pop a person in. A person just kneeling, just say someone just kind of standing at the river's edge, okay? Just looking. Just pondering on life in general, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Just having a moment to himself. A little carrot, okay? Now he might be a bit small. Let's make him a little bigger. See, it's difficult at first to get the sense of scale when painting. That's a bit better, I would say. And let's just sit him down in the snow. And you could, if you want, pop one or two sort of footprints. Again, it's very deep snow, so you're not going to see many, to be quite honest. But a general little trail of footprints coming down like that, and I'll put a tiny little highlight on him like that. And there we are. So my friends, I will call it finished. I'm just doodling now, you see. I'm doodling. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm doodling. I'm just darkening some of the tree trunks down at the bases. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'll darken some parts of the river bank as well, just to make it more pronounced, so you can see it that little bit better. And I have a frame for it. Let's get this frame and have a look. And how about that? Look at that. Let me just move my reference photo out of the way here and put the frame down. And my friends, I'm calling it finished. Isn't that? And there goes my brushes. Now, isn't that lovely? One beautiful snow scene finished. Look at that. Nice and simple. Job done. And there we are, my friends. I hope you found that helpful. I hope you've gotten some hints and tips from it. Let me just turn the camera here now so you can see myself. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed that. This is really lovely. I'm very, very happy with this. Lovely warm colours against cool colours. And a nice simple reflection, a nice simple idea of a lake. Well, not a lake, a little river, a little stream coming through the snow. I hope you've learned something small from it, even a couple of little hints and tips. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe, and I will be back next week with another tutorial. I'm not sure what to paint yet. I have a few ideas floating around, a couple of requests that I want to get through. So stay tuned, and happy painting, my friends. I will see you next week. Again, thank you so much for your support on Patreon as well. And I hope you're enjoying the extra videos and paintings and lots of hints and tips over there as well. So I'll see you next week. God bless, my friends. Take care.